Okay, geometry students, we're going to be going over section 3.1 today, and it's angles formed by parallel lines and transversals. Now, we're going to go ahead and just dive right into it. So if you need more assistance or if you want to take some notes, feel free to check out your book. Here we go. All right, so what we have here, we have two parallel lines with a transversal cutting through it. Now, we haven't really talked about what is what, but let me just go ahead and talk about the parallel lines. We'll talk more about transversals in class another day. So we have two parallel lines, and if you notice that we have 8 angles. We have angle here, we have an angle here, here, here. Now I'm writing with my mouse, so I apologize if it looks a little rough. So we have 8 angles that are formed. Now, there are a lot of angles that are congruent, which means they're exactly the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how these angles are congruent. So like this example, or angle number 2, I'm going to say is 100 degrees. Okay, so if this is 100 degrees, I know that this angle is going to be 80 degrees. And the reason I know that is because this right here is a straight line. And so a straight line is always going to be 180 degrees. Okay. Now, if angle 2 is 100, angle 4 would be 100, because angles that are directly on the opposite side of each other will always be congruent. Now, you can also work off of the whole 180 degree angle if you want to go that route as well, 80, 100. And now, if this is 80 degrees, the opposite angle, which is angle number 3, is 80 degrees as well. So once again, here's your 180 degrees here. Okay, so let me clean this up a little bit. Feel free to pause the video if you need additional instruction, or maybe if you're writing things down and I'm going a little too fast. I'm going too fast for you. All right, so we have 80, 100, 80, 100. All right, so now here's the thing. This entire setup that is right here is going to be identical to these 4 angles down here because of the fact that they are parallel. So we have this 80, 100, 100, and lastly 80. So everything is always going to be the exact same. So here we go. So this is how parallel lines work when you're dealing with angles. So now let's talk about when you're dealing with algebra. All right, here we go. Here's an angle where we have a 60-degree angle and then we have an x plus 64. Now what we have to do is we're going to have to solve for x. Now in order to solve for x, we got to take a look at this angle and we got to look at this angle here. And the question is, are they congruent? Now if they are congruent, this makes life a lot easier, because all we have to do is just say x plus 64 is equal to 60. I just take my 2 angles and set them equal to each other. But the other question that I got to ask myself is this: are they supplementary? Now, if they are supplementary, then I would take x plus 64. I would add them all together, plus 60 is equal to 180. Okay. Now, 180 degrees, that's the definition of supplementary, is when you have 2 or more angles that add up to get to 180 degrees. So there's my 2 questions. Are they congruent or are they supplementary? Okay. Now, some of you guys might be able to pick it up off the spot really quick, but some of you guys are going to have to look and just kind of think about it. And so here's what I recommend you do, and that is what I call testing the angles. Now, what I mean by testing the angles is taking this 60-degree angle here and filling out what all the measurements of this particular angle would be. So if this was 60, this would be 120. This right here would be 60. This would be 120, going off of the whole vertical angle and 180-degree rule here. So if that's the same, then these 4 angles here would be the same measurement as these 4 angles down here. And so this would be 120, this would be 60, this would be 120, and lastly, this would be 60. Okay, so based upon this information, this is the angle and this is the angle in question. Notice that they're both 60 degrees. So the answer is, are they congruent? The answer is yes. So that means that I will use this way to answer them. Okay, let's try another one. All right, here's my next problem here, and once again, I'm still dealing with, are they congruent or are they supplementary? Well, here what we have 7x plus 6, and then we have 8x minus 1. We're not giving an angle measure, so here's what, once again, I'm going to say. I'm going to say we should test the angles. All right, so I am going to test them. Now, what I do when I test them is make up any angle measure that off the top of my head. So this angle right here that I just put an X on, that looks pretty obtuse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a measurement that is clearly obtuse, which means is greater than 90 degrees. So I'm going to choose 130. Okay, and what I'm doing is I'm just plugging in numbers. I'm still working off of the whole vertical angle, supplementary angle concepts, and I'm just testing to see whether or not these angles are going to be exactly the same or if they're supplementary. So this is 130, and lastly this is 50 degrees. Now the two angle measures that are in question, let me clean this up a little bit so you can see a little more better. All right, so here we go. Here's my two angle measures. Based upon the angle measures that I used, I know that both of these are going to be congruent. Now, please make sure that you understand this. This 50 here, this 50 down here, has nothing to do with solving it and plugging it into the equation. It has nothing to do with it. It is nothing more than just testing it. So based upon this information, I know that they are congruent, which means to solve, I would set them both equal to each other and then solve for x. Now, let's see if we can find one that's a little more challenging. All right, here's our next problem. Now remember, we're solving for x here, and I haven't been solving for x for the previous questions just because that's not really the main concept that I want to teach in this video. I just want to make sure you understand, are they supplementary or are they congruent, but if we have enough time, we'll solve for x here. All right, so we have 15x plus 3, we have 30x minus 5. Question, are they supplementary or are they congruent? Now, once again, test the angles, which means by just plugging numbers in. So like, for example, if this right here is 120 degrees, now you might be asking, where'd you get those numbers? Made them up. That's 120. This also is 120. Remember, I'm still going off of the vertical angles and 180 degree rules here. This would be 60, this would be 60, this would be 120, and lastly this one would be 120 as well. All right, so to clean this up a little more, let me clean this up. And so what do you observe about these two angles? Well, they're different. That's 60 and that's 120. So what that means is they are going to be supplementary. So I am going to now take my two angle measures and I'm going to add them together. And then I'm going to solve for x. So I'm going to go ahead and speed up the process here because I think I'm running out of time. But let me do the next step real quick. 45x and 180x, because I combined like terms and my 3's canceled out. That's a positive, that's a negative 3. X is going to equal, I believe, 4. Now to check your work, take your 4, plug it back into the original problem, and you should get 63 and 127 degrees. Now, just to make sure you're right, remember that both of these two angles added up to get to 180, and sure enough, 63 and that's 127. These two add up to get to 180. Congratulations, you did the questions correctly. All right, in closing, I know that I only went over about maybe 4 problems. If you have any more questions, please let me know. I pretty much am available every morning at 7 o'clock. If you need to contact me to come in early, I'll be happy to do that. Here's my phone number. Here's my contact information. Feel free to call or text, but if you call, please leave a message, meaning if you need me to come in at 6:45 in the morning, I should make that happen. But anyway, thank you for watching. See you later.